wonderful for all of you to see you all. Thank you very much for coming out on a Friday night and spending it at the Billings Public Library with us. I appreciate that very much. We all do. A quick introduction. My name is Joe, and I'm a librarian here with the Billings Public Library. I recently took on the role of library archivist, but I guess my training, I'll say, is more in history, which is kind of a wonderful pairing. Because as an archivist, I mean, really where does the historian kind of go to play? And it's really in the archives. That's where we find the repository of information that has, yet to be analyzed and historicized, examined, rewritten, sometimes revised even. So this is a wonderful place for me, and I'm extremely happy with it. I feel very lucky to have this role. And it's kind of fun because I get to dig through our collection and find things like this I can put together for you and show you bit by bit as I go along, kind of uncovering how we got our art collection, how it's developed over the years, and maybe where it's going in the future as well. So now this is a very new presentation for me, so I'm going to be doing some notes here, so hopefully you're not too offended by that. But I want to make a bit of a disclaimer here. I am not in any way an expert on Joseph Sharp, Charles Russell, Yellowstone Kelly. But what I'm hoping to do tonight is really share with you some information on and some stories on how we got our art pieces, how we developed our collection, but the presentation is very much a work in progress. And believe me, information is subject to change as I come across more documents and upload, or I guess update as needed. So that being said, if you see something tonight that doesn't quite sound right, you've heard a different story, or you know something else to be true, I really encourage you to let me know afterwards. Just talk to me after the presentation, ask questions, because I do want to amend this for future presentations as well. So please feel free to share with me what you know. So with that said, let me just show you what I've come across in our archives that details how we got these pieces. I'm going to start off with a little bit of an idea, because it's kind of the underlying theme of tonight. I'm going to start off with the idea of provenance. What provenance means to us, maybe a little bit about what is good and what is not. So we'll start with this. The first thing I want to say is this, really, I guess I'll start with provenance. It's really the history of a piece and how it came to be in our possession. So who owned it before us, where it's come from, something we can show that kind of details how we got it for a little bit of a legitimacy, that kind of thing. So this is provenance that we have for the L.A. Huffman prints that we have in our collection. Now these are not on display tonight, as you can see, but this is another collection we have that I'm kind of dying to show you as time goes on. We're doing some work with these right now. It's going to be fantastic. But this is what we have in the way of provenance for the Huffmans. And it's pretty dang good provenance, I think, right? We have basically a list, a shipping list. It's got the Huffman letterhead. It's got the prices we paid, the date that the transaction was going through. It's got the total, receipt payment. This is a piece that I really love. This is called Roping the Maverick. You can see we purchased Roping the Maverick for a whopping $12.50 back in 1922. We paid $130.50, which if you believe inflation calculators, which are spotty, that's about $2,000 that we paid for this collection of L.A. Huffman prints. These are tinted prints by Huffman himself, and you can see over the years that the color has faded, but that used to be a very vibrant blue sky, and even maybe potentially green grass. We don't quite know, but nevertheless, this is called Roping the Maverick. This was shot by the photographer who is shooting our prints right now and all of our artwork, so we can digitize it and put it up on our website. So Amy Nelson is with us here tonight. She's outstanding. So this was shot by her just recently. Basically, it's a photograph of our print. So I want to put that up there. So in the way of provenance, I'm going to say that's pretty good. We also have, here's a slip telling us that we paid $130.50, the same value. So I know this is pretty solid. There's a letter from Huffman himself to our chair at the time, our library chair, our board chair, I should say, saying I'm sending the pictures. Hopefully your board is pleased with them. Pretty rock solid. I mean, this is kind of, without any doubt, this is how we got our Huffmans. So in the way of provenance, I would consider this outstanding. In one way, I guess I would say, outstanding. The other way is that, not so much, is that there's not really too much, unfortunately, of a story to tell you, though. I just show you this, and that's basically it. But there's no real like, well, okay, but why do we have the Huffmans? And how did we seek the Huffmans out? Did he approach us? Did we approach him? Why did we spend the equivalent of a couple $1,000s to build this collection? What was the reasoning behind it? And unfortunately for that, there's not much. So provenance kind of balances between this empirical kind of data like this, right, incontrovertible, and stories and folklore. And what we have for most of the other pieces tonight is nothing really compared to this, but somewhere in the balance, and some pure just stories. So we'll get into some of those. But just so you know, I would consider that pretty darn good provenance. So here we go, really to kick the night off now. Let's start with the sharps. And the sharps are lining the wall over there, including Custer's battlefield. Now this is a piece of library minutes from October 5th, 1944. This essentially tells the story of how we got Custer's battlefield. And I'm going to put a couple of these big walls of text up, and I definitely don't expect you to read them. I'll summarize them for you. But in short, before I get ahead of myself, there's three key players we want to keep in mind here. We have Joseph Sharp, that's obvious. We have S.G. and Carrie Reynolds, and we have Carolyn Rebeth. Who are they and why does it matter? Well, S.G. and Carrie Reynolds, husband and wife. Carolyn Rebeth is their daughter, just remarried later with the name Rebeth. The whole idea behind this story is that how did we come to own this Custer's battlefield? Well, S.G. was an Indian agent on the Crow Agency in like 1908, I believe it was. For about 8 years he was as well, during the same time that Sharp would spend his summers there. And so these two families came into contact with each other. They developed a friendship. Carolyn Rebeth tells stories of hanging out in Sharp's kitchen, and at his house. So they were definitely close. The families knew each other very well. And then later, while Carrie Reynolds was alive, she was also as well a member of the board, and she was actually a chair of the board as well. So she was prominent within the Billings Public Library. And so there's really this kind of whole history of how they made their way into Billings, how they knew Sharp, and Carolyn as well. So she wrote to our then chair, because this is 1944 now, so by this time S.G. and Carrie were both dead. Carolyn's living. She writes to our chair saying, I've been in contact with Sharp, and he'd really like to basically give you Custer's battlefield. He'd been looking at a couple different places on where it could go. He wanted it to be a public institution. He wanted it to be a place that could care for the piece. But he also spent time here at the library, I should say, when we were at the Western Historical Heritage Center. But he spent their time doing exhibitions, and so he knew the library, and he knew Carrie, and she was the chair of the board again. So he felt kind of like natural just donating it to the library. And you can see the board basically said unanimously, absolutely, we accept this gift. And in short, we then had it. Now that being said, I'll go to my other page here. It does get a little bit tricky though, because that's how we basically account for having the Custer's battlefield. That's our provenance. Basically a piece of board minutes. What we don't have is anything of the way, unfortunately, of our other pieces over there on the Sharp, or for the other pieces. So where do we get them from? What do we think? And really all I have is an assumption. Again, I have a connection between Carrie Reynolds, who is well known as a patron for the arts, very instrumental in bringing an art collection to the library. And so all I have to go off of is how do we get Badman? How do we get Stone? How do we get Afternoon Clouds? I'm thinking most likely that it was just a donation, but I have nothing in the way of actual provenance. I just have a story at this point. It's not even that, it's really an assumption on the part of my end that most likely they were donated to the collection by Carrie Reynolds, close friend of Sharp, but that's all I have. So the provenance is kind of spotty at this point. Now, I don't know if that really matters or not. I'm not trying to sell these. I'm not trying to auction them at Sotheby's. I'm really just trying to tell you an interesting story. So for the purpose of this evening, the provenance seems fine because I can kind of tell you an interesting story, but there's really no, there's no stakes involved with this. But nevertheless, there's questions. And I, as an archivist, as a historian, I would really like to uncover the the actual proof of how we got those other pieces. As of right now, it's still a mystery. So this little piece, though, I found in the archives, it has something to do with this. I don't know quite yet what. It feels like it's a big puzzle to the mystery here, but you can see that J.H. Sharp Pictures for Sale. You can reach Sharp in just Taos, New Mexico. I love the old-timey, like, where can I reach you out? Well, just I'm in New Mexico, in Taos. You'll be able to get a hold of me. Or Miss S.G. Reynolds in Billings. Again, I'm just there in Billings. You'll be able to find me. But there's this listing, Strikes His Enemy Pretty, A Bad Man, Afternoon Clouds, and then Near Fort Washakie and Lander. All four of those pieces are on display tonight. Now, they're not crossed off. One of these says librarian's office, which sounds fantastic. Might put that back in the librarian's office. We don't know yet. We'll talk to Gavin. But the other ones are, okay, so did we purchase these from Carrie Reynolds? Was she selling her collection? Was this a little advertisement slip? I wish I had more information, but it feels like if I want to uncover how we got the other one, somehow that piece is going to be involved. But nevertheless, I thought it was kind of interesting because those pieces are right up there right now. So that's it for Sharp. More to come in the future. Now we're going to look at Kelly, Yellowstone Kelly and his famous map. You can see here the little man with the strong heart. We're going to come back to that. That's an interesting story. But this is the map on display. Obviously, that's the original map. Price, possession. This is it, so you can see a little bit better right now, a little bit less glare. Kelly looking amazingly dapper. Okay, what do we have in the way of provenance that shows how we got the Kelly map? Man, we really have an article from April 26, 1929 in the Gazette that essentially says, along with the map, a collection of photographs are going to be displayed at the Billings Commerce, Billings Commercial Club, and then put into the museum of the Parmley Billings Memorial Library. That's my provenance. That's the piece I have that says it was coming to the library. It doesn't say loaned, doesn't say anything like that. So it makes me feel like it was meant to be stored here, but there's not too much in the other, in the way of a direct, again, some piece of empirical data or empirical evidence that shows me exactly who gave it to us, when. And I did a little bit of, digging, because I wanted to truly try to find something to be able to tell you tonight. I will say that before I go on with that, if you scroll down a little bit further, because it does say map and photographs, so if you scroll down further, it lists the photographs in that collection, and that's them. Same exact names, liver-eating Johnson up there with the amazing beard, General Nelson Miles down here, which we'll come to again as well. So these were the photographs that came along with that, with the map. I've never seen those photographs. I do not know where they are. That doesn't mean that they're lost or anything like that. It just means that, again, I don't have any documentation showing where they went from here to wherever they are now. So if I uncover them someday, my eureka will echo through the city. But as of right now, they are kind of not too sure where they are. So that's the way, kind of like the map stands with that. What else did I want to mention about this? Yeah, that's right. I didn't know that the minutes existed prior to 1936. My wonderful director helped me with that. We have the minutes from this exact era, so 1929. So I went to the board minutes to try and find if maybe there was a piece in there that mentioned in April of 1929, we took possession of the Yellowstone Kelly map. Unfortunately, there was no such mention in the 1929 minutes. There wasn't any mention in the 1928 minutes when Yellowstone Kelly died in December 28. There wasn't any mention in any single minute after that. So again, for some reason, when we took possession of the map, nobody seemed to make mention of it at the next board meeting, or at least thought it was worthy of taking notes, which is interesting to me and also a little bit infuriating, but that's where that stands. So now this doesn't have to do with provenance, but this is kind of an interesting story, and it's a lot, so I don't want to get lost here. So at some unknown point of the map's history with this, it was stolen, which is really astonishing because every single piece of any writing I've ever come across with this map, where its location is either stored in the Yam Vault, which is where we store it now, or hanging on a wall in the Montana room. So when this was stolen in the 70s, I'm assuming it's the latter, that it was hanging in the wall in the Montana room, which really makes me wonder, did somebody literally just go up, pick the map off the wall, and nonchalantly walk out the building? And it seems likely because, again, it wasn't at the Yam Vault. So in short, the story is Harold Ruth, Gallery 85, gets this map. Some gentleman comes by or some person comes by and offers to sell Harold Ruth this map. And so he purchases it. And then he gets a little bit intrigued with it. Where's the map from? How much did he pay for it? We don't know, unfortunately. But he gets a little bit kind of curious as to what the map really is. So he does what people should do. He does the first instinctual thing, I think. He comes to the library. He talks to a librarian and says, what is this map? Well, I guess first he talked to Fred Krieg, a Billings historian. Fred didn't know much about what was going on. Maybe he gave him an idea that that could be a Yellowstone Kelly thing, but he came to the library and basically had an idea that this map might be attached to the scout that worked under General Nelson Miles, and that's Yellowstone Kelly. So he starts looking through a book, which we have on display back there, that nice black book. That's the original Yale-published Yellowstone Kelly memoirs. He starts looking through a book, this one, and he uncovers this map, this fold-out map. And he's then talking at some point to reference librarian Jeff Edgemont, he says, and I can only imagine how that conversation went down, to where he's discussing this map, and he says that, yeah, I own this map. I bought this map. To which Jeff Edgemont must have said, you what? You own what now? And where is this map? Can you bring it inside so maybe I can see it? But yeah, he said he bought a hot map. Jeff Edgemont let him know what was going on. And it's something, it sounds to me like maybe all I wanted to do was get my money back that I paid for the map. And then he says, even if it had not happened, the map would have been returned, which sounds to me like we definitely paid him for the map back. I'm not too sure, again, what we paid for it to get it back from him, but it sounds to me like we did pay for it. So the first thing I did is I went to the library's board minutes to find out, how was this discussed? We lost the map, and in 1972, we got it back. But at the May 24th, 1972 board meeting, somehow this did not make it to the docket, which just blows my mind. So I'm just going to go on record right here and just ask my director that everything, please just mention it. Just make a note of it. If something's stolen, just talk about it. So future archivists will not be tearing their hair out and wondering what happened and how do we get it back and where was it. But honestly, unfortunately, there's no information related to it. Long story short, though, we got the map back. So interesting development. Now this is where we're going to talk a little bit more about that nickname. So here we're going to start talking about Russell, obviously. I included this picture because it kind of intermingles Yellowstone Kelly and Russell. This is how they kind of, their lives kind of cross paths. So this is a shot, this is a picture, I believe it's ink on paper. This is a picture that Russell drew when he heard about the famous Yellowstone Kelly duel with two Sioux warriors. And I'll read you just a quick story. So the summer of 1868 and 69, Yellowstone Kelly is delivering mail from Fort Stevenson to Fort Buford in the Dakota Territories, and he's doing it alone, which was much to the amusement of his fellow mail carriers because they thought it was way too dangerous to do. So he comes across two Sioux warriors and instantly jumps from his horse because he's instantly being fired upon, kills one outright, and then traps another one behind a tree. It's kind of interesting the way Russell drew it. I'll walk over here, unfortunately. So this is the warrior holding like a blanket out the side of the tree. And what he's doing is he's drawing his fire. He's trying to get him to fire. And Kelly keeps falling for this, by the way. Keeps shooting once he sees the blanket. And then he says in his memoirs, which is a really interesting story, the native would shoot out the other side almost instantaneously after being shot at and shoot at Kelly with an arrow. And obviously it nearly hit him several times. Eventually, Kelly kind of baits him into this action, shoots him in the arm. The warrior charges him, and Kelly kills him. So he killed two Sioux warriors on this delivery, on this run alone, hence the nickname. What was it again? Little man with a strong heart. So kind of interesting story. So when Russell heard about this story, though, he drew it and retold the story. And then at this time, 1922, Kelly's 80 years old, retired in Pasadena. But he reads the story and is very impressed by this picture and says that's basically about as close as you can get to the story, with a depiction. Can I please include this in my memoirs? To which Russell says, absolutely. So you'll see that picture in that book over there. And then, they formed a little bit of a friendship, but Kelly died not too long after. So there's the kind of connection between Kelly and Russell. Sorry, not really having to do with our collection, but an interesting story nonetheless. And this is it. I mean, the Russell. I don't know if I don't want to say like it's our most prized, but we are so extremely proud to have one in our collection. Moving on with this, more text. Again, let me summarize. So on the left, more board minutes. I'll just make it quick and easy. More board minutes showing that Whitney Herford of Lake Grove, Oregon, sent us a letter saying, hey, I have this Russell and I'd love to sell it to you for $750. What do you think? And we basically said, absolutely, we'd love to have it. Bought it from for $750. Once again, voting unanimously to do it. Why he contacted us, well, he got it from his dad is the story, who knew Russell. They were both from Billings, or at least not Russell, but the Herfords were. And Whitney wanted the picture to return to Billings. We hear that a lot, that people have these collections, they move away, they're from other places, but they want the collection to stay with Montana. And this is very much that kind of a story. So that's basically, once again, a piece of somewhat official documentation. It's a library board minutes. We bought the picture for $750. That's about it. Now, on the right, though, you have a reference librarian story, one Myrtle Cooper from August of 1975. And Myrtle had a great story. So right off the bat, there's a little bit of a problem, though, which Myrtle's telling. So it says, Charles Russell sold a painting to Mr. Herford, Jack, or settled a debt for $25. He either sold the painting or he settled the debt. That is a massive discrepancy to me. Which one is it? Did he sell it or did he sell a debt? Now, I don't know about you, but I really want to believe that Russell had some $25 bet owed to Jack Herford, and he said, you know what, look, I'll just give you this, or maybe I'll just paint this one. I'll give you a watercolor, and then he gives him Lone Warrior. That's a wonderful story. That's very, I don't know, romantic. It's a great way to think about Russell's being passed along. And there are a lot of legends attached to Russell paintings that are kind of just like that Russell just wanted to give a person a painting. And of course, this is usually on the owner of the painting side that you hear these stories, right? That this is how I got it. Russell just decided to give it to me. Or he scored a debt and gave me this painting. Again, there's nothing in the way of like actual proof, but it's a wonderful legend that kind of attaches itself with these paintings. And we have one of ourselves. But again, that's a little bit of a problem. Hard to prove because I don't know which one it is. So we trade with caution, obviously, we can't prove it. This is more suspect. The second, this third paragraph here says, consequently, while he was living, he, as in Whitney, contacted us, the library, and through the persuasion, again, of there's that name, Mrs. S.G. Reynolds. Constantly, I'm seeing this name in the way of our art collection and building our art collection. Mrs. S.G. Reynolds, Mrs. S.G. Reynolds, Carrie Reynolds, all the time. Such a huge force in building our art collection. And here it shows up again, which is really strange, really kind of odd to me, because it's through the persuasion of Carrie, a member of the board, that the board bought the picture for $750, because again, we bought this in 1949, but Carrie died in 1942. So if Carrie was really that persuasive in us purchasing this picture, it took 7 years for this deal to go down. So was Mrs. S.G. Reynolds involved in this or not? As somebody who might be trying to prove a story to you, there's no way for me to do that. It doesn't seem like the numbers really line up. That being said, again, for the purpose of this discussion and just telling you an interesting story, there you go. Maybe Carrie Reynolds once again had her kind of like very, very influential hand in us getting the Russell. But again, if I want to prove that to you tonight, I don't have anything for you, unfortunately. It's also known as the last Russell on display in Billings. I was going to talk to you about the Mackey collection, and I'm glad I didn't because it would have taken too much time. So there were a lot more Russells here. Long story short, there was a lot more Russells here. The Mackey collection, those are now all at the Montana Historical Society. So that's where they went. The state purchased them for $50,000, which it says right here, we were going to buy, and I'm going to talk about this later, we were going to buy a painting for $12,000, indicating that's quite a bargain in relation to the fact that, well, I should say, the fact that we got the Mackey collection for 50 makes the Mackey quite a bargain if we're considering buying another one just for 12. And that's absolutely true. The fact that the Mackeys sold the state their collection of Russells for $50,000 was purposefully at an extremely discounted rate, which was a wonderful thing that the Mackeys did. So our title, the title of our piece is called Lone Warrior. I wanted to show you there were some other Lone Warriors as well. This is really not a theme, but or excuse me, not a series, but more of a theme that Russell played with. He enjoyed working with, something he really kind of did quite a number of. Basically solitary native warriors on horseback. Most of these, I believe, in fact, I think all are from the Montana Historical Society. This one's untitled, but this is one of theirs. Another one, black and white, maybe pencil. He also liked to make these wonderful wax sculptures. I spoke with a wonderful curator over at the MHS, Jennifer Bottomley O'Looney. She described why he did these, not just because of wax, but because he, again, made these so he could play with the light and understand better now how he could do the lighting on his paintings. So he would make these, cast them in different lights, so he could better understand how light really kind of played onto subjects, which I thought was a really fascinating way of going about figuring out how to do lighting on in paintings. Now this is the one of theirs called The Outpost. It's very similar to ours. I don't want to call it more detailed because in some ways it is, in some ways it's not. This rock formation is astonishing me. It's beautiful. You can see, I don't know, this is what I see, ladies and gentlemen. I see a little bit more musculature on the warrior. The terrain seems like it's a little bit more fleshed out. But then when you go to ours, the gear, the blanket, everything that he's wearing. I love the hair on the horse's head of ours. So it's, which one is more detailed? Kind of that's up to you. Ours is much more cropped. That one shows a little bit more of a kind of a larger frame, I guess, a larger scope. You can kind of tell what he's looking at. With ours, you don't really know what the terrain looks like, but nevertheless, that's something that's very similar. And you can see they're both watercolors. How Russell just kind of played with the same theme over and over again, maybe tweaking here and there. So he definitely liked the lone warrior kind of element, kind of theme. This one. This is the last of it, the ones that got away. This is kind of a bummer. We got a letter from David Finley Galleries in New York once saying, apparently we reached out to them saying, we'd love to buy that Three Wise Men Russell that appeared in Antiques magazine. So they wrote us back saying, sure, absolutely. $12,000 is what we're selling. Again, we bought ours for $750, not too much before this, but $12,000, that's what that other article was talking about for Three Wise Men, and that's it. So that's what we were trying to purchase, but there's no return correspondence. I think it ended kind of at the number of $12,000. It seems like all future correspondence was cut off at that point. But we reached out. We wanted to build a Russell collection. We were buying prints at the same time, what we called copies back then, but I believe they were prints for a pretty hefty sum as well. So it seemed to me that once again, the library was looking to keep building its collection, and specifically it did want more Russells. It was in the market for more Russells. Now you're going to get a little bit of text here, but again, I'm going to just summarize this for you. This is the one that really, if I'm going to say the one that got away, this is the one I'm really thinking we might have had. So again, David Finley Galleries again, 4 years or about 3.5 years later, They reach out to us this time saying, we have this watercolor by Russell called Wolves Attacking Cattle in a Blizzard. We sold it before, but the client wants to give it back. We can't turn a profit on it because the client thinks it's worth about $9,000, but we're not gonna be able to turn a profit for that. So really what we're wondering is, we'd be very interested in just donating it to your museum. We'd love to just give it to you guys. He says that we believe it can be arranged if you're willing to accept the picture as a gift from Mrs. Finley and myself. All we ask you to do is give us a letter that in your opinion, the picture is worth $9,000. So if you can send us something that says, yeah, this is worth $9,000, the picture's kind of yours, right? So we wrote back, and again, I'll summarize real quickly this time. Absolutely, we'd love to have this painting. We don't have anybody that is qualified to do this. Now there is this guy, Ross Toole, who is the director of the Montana Historical Society at this time. So an expert kind of like on Russell's, but not really an appraiser. We think we could put you in touch with him, but you know, don't know. So anyways, let us know if this is okay, and then we'll see what happens. And then the correspondence dies there, and so do I, just a little bit. I die every time I read this interaction. So now, this isn't it. Here's some of my kind of like, okay, so first of all, wolves attacking cattle in a blizzard. The picture was undoubtedly painted when Russell painted The Last of the 10,000. Russell never painted The Last of the 10,000, so really what it made me think is, does Mr. Finley have all the facts right about, not that I'm calling anything in question, but I really want to find what painting did we almost have? What is wolves attacking cattle in a blizzard? I can't find that painting of Russell's work. Neither can I find Last of the 10,000 because Last of the 10,000 doesn't exist. So I'm kind of wondering about the accuracy of this information. This is the painting that launched Russell's career. This is called Waiting for a Chinook. This one's kind of rough. 1887. This picture is Charles Russell's reply to my inquiry as to the condition of my cattle in 1886. This is when Charles Russell worked at the OH Ranch. So they sent him a letter back saying, not good, because it's the winter of 1886, and Russell painted this actual painting, it looks like, because he says, this is the real thing. But he painted this to go along with that letter saying, the cattle are not good. It's not looking good. We've lost most. We're waiting for a Chinook. We need a warm breeze. So with these wolves kind of stalking this cow, that was it. Now, this is absolutely in the same era as wolves attacking cattle in a blizzard. 1886, 1887, same era. This is 1903. This is Russell's redo of this very popular picture. That's called Last of the 5,000. Never did a Last of the 10,000. There were 5,000 cattle on this ranch. He called this Last of the 5,000 because that's basically all that was remaining. So Billings' information may not be completely accurate. Why that matters to me is because I think this is it. I think this is the one that got away from us. Now this is at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City. I almost want to check my email right now just to see if they might have gotten back to me. But I reached out to them saying, here's the story. The whole thing I just told you. You have this painting called Wolves Attacking in a Blizzard. Same year, same dimensions, but it's just not wolves attacking cattle. Is David Finley off with just that one word? You know, he didn't always get things right. Could this possibly be the one? And this is very early Russell. There's no skull. You know, the Russell trademark that is on ours. This is right very early in his career. I couldn't even imagine the value of something like this now, but probably pretty high. But this is I guess this is a little bit of my white whale right now. I really want to find out, and I'm just dying to hear back from the museum. Is this the one that we could have purchased? So don't know. Don't know. Come back again. I'll host another evening to find out if this is in fact the one. So, and really that's about what I have for you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the story of the pieces in front of you. Again, we have those amazing L.A. Huffman prints that we want to, and I will definitely collect into a story of how we got them. I really want to have somebody come by and tell us about the prints. They're very faded. They're very, very, 1 century old now. but I think you would love to see them. So right now they're being digitized. That's a program to come. I really want to thank some great people at the Charles Russell Museum, Montana Historical Society. There's great people out there dying to give us information all the time. So please always reach out to your museums and libraries. Anybody have any questions I might be able to answer about kind of what we talked about tonight or about the art? I might have an insight about it. Yes, sir.
To start with, where has these been, and what are you going to do from now on?
So, for a long time, again in the archives and the documents I come across, the map was in the director's office for quite a long time. The Russell was in possibly the director's office for quite a long time. They were on display in our previous building. They were on the walls. Definitely before that, when we were still in the Western Heritage Center, they were definitely on display, the Huffmans, the map. Where they went? Well, they went to the Yam Vault. That's where they're stored now. For a number of reasons. This building was not to the Yellowstone Art Museum kind of secured vault, and that's who houses them for us. And the reason is because we just don't have the right facility to put these pieces on display. They're not behind UV resistant acrylic or anything like that, or plexiglass. So this is not just it's just not the environment for them to be displayed and preserved at the same time. We would be doing them a great disservice to put them in a place that gets as much great natural light as this place gets. So that's why they are stored away, secured, brought out only every so often. It's been about 3.5 years now since we put them on display. We want to remedy that. We want to put them on display maybe once a year, but right now it's we're just trying to get that in the works. So, but yeah, that's where they've been, at the Yellowstone Art Museum vault. Yep. And that's where they'll go back, by the way. Yep. Any other questions? Sir?
How many pieces are in the collection total?
Well, it depends on what you mean by fine art or what you mean by just art. We have a large art collection. What do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on display tonight. We have 6 other Huffmans, so that's 14. We have a number of other photographs we have our great Lauren Entz out in the children's department. We have some Donna Lu's that are just not to be displayed. I'd say our whole collection is maybe in the area of 30 pieces or so. We have 4 wonderful tables as well, 5 wonderful tables as well that were created specifically for the library. We very much consider those a piece of our art collection. They were designed specifically for our geography, our environment here for the library, so that's a part of it. I'd say 30 or so pieces is really what makes up our art collection. So yeah, very proud of it. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Well, Terry must have been a good saleswoman because quite a few of the families that live in the Pacific and Mustache had sharps and still have sharps.
Well, that's wonderful to know.
On their walls.
So sharps are still very much on display in Billings. I don't know how many Russells are on display, but that's really good to know how many sharps are on still out there, you know, in people's families' homes.
And Harley O'Donnell was Ivy O'Donnell's grandson.
Yes.
You probably heard, because he was always inquiring about the paintings because he said his grandfather had donated a number of paintings to the library, and the family always wondered where they went. And I thought one was a Russell.
Well, no, that's interesting. I haven't come across anything ever saying that we had another Russell, but maybe that's another piece that I'll someday uncover. But to the best of my knowledge, this is the only one we ever had. But again, I'm not too sure. Not too sure.
But he was involved in establishing the state on the border.
His name was on that check.
Yeah, he was.
Was that the one?
He signed that one check.
I'll have to go all the way back to the first. Right there, yeah, yeah. So that was our treasurer at the time. Yeah, absolutely.
Where in the world did you find that check?
Yeah, these are the kinds of things that you come across in the archives. This is in our folder of our art collection, our what's called our art history folder. And there's a number of other documents that are very similar to this. We actually corresponded with Huffman quite a bit. I could have put maybe 5 or 6 letters up here for you to see. This one just seemed to be the most pertinent, that I'm shipping the pieces. You should have them soon. But we have quite a number of pieces that are from the era, directly corresponding with people that we purchase materials from and art collections from. So yeah, that's the great thing about the archives, is that we keep these documents. They're well preserved. I'm just trying to now very much stitch together and kind of, create a story out of them. So, yeah. Anybody else have any other thoughts? I'm going to let you just have at it then. By all means, you can kind of approach the art really wherever you want. I put the the orange book back there. That's the original Russell book that we were talking about, where he talks about, he basically had a weekly column, and in that weekly column, he talked about Yellowstone Kelly. You can check that book, or at least look at it. We can't check it out, but we can look at it. We have the original Yellowstone Kelly memoir and a wonderful Russell book that contains all the Russells from the Montana Historical Society, the map, pictures. Be very careful, because the easels are a little unstable, so just kind of, be very careful around the pictures. That's all we ask. And really, I'll just do my normal kind of closer. We very much appreciate it when you guys come out to our programs. We've worked very hard to put these together. It's wonderful to see people come out and have an interest in what we put on. So thank you very much, as always, for coming out, spending your evening with us. And let us know if you ever have an idea for what you'd like to see in a program. We're dying to know. So thank you all very much for coming out tonight.